the real silent crisis that we need to get to as a country is undocumented South Africans.
Yeah.
Many African countries have not been able to register all their people. In fact, according to the statistics we have, the country that is far ahead of registering its citizens is Egypt. It has registered its citizens 98%, which means 92% of Egyptians don't have any documentation whatsoever. In South Africa, we are at 89% documentation, which means 11% of South Africans are not documented. If you look at our population, 11% will be about 6 million people. They don't have any form of document, but they are not illegal because they are in their country. They are South Africans, but they've got no document, nothing whatsoever. They don't appear in any database. And I think the prime example you may remember is our Bester.
And we can get there through all of the things we've discussed, making Home Affairs' own offices more reliable, giving you access to services in more locations and through your technology eventually. And what hopefully will happen over time is that the burden on Home Affairs officials will be less because routine things will be taken care of through technology and through other channels, right? Sure. So basically, you currently, and I haven't even mentioned home deliveries. We're going to introduce the ability for you to have your ID delivered to your house. Why must you go?
With the what is that thing? A PIN code? What is that other thing?
OTP.
OTP. Yes.
We're more advanced than OTP. So, that's old stuff. That's old stuff.
60.
We're at the cutting edge. So
There's levels to this thing.
I don't like OTPs. They're outdated. So, imagine now suddenly a routine transaction like picking up an ID.
Yeah.
You no longer have to go and queue.
Awesome.
People who want to apply for a new passport, for example, can renew it through their banking app. Suddenly you're taking pressure off Home Affairs. You're taking people out of the queues. And let me tell you who remains. It's Abongile.
Sure.
Because they are the people who need help for problems that are complex, that are not routine. It's not, I have an ID, I lost it, I need a new one. That's routine. But someone who's lost their parents and who is unable to prove their identity or is struggling to do so requires focused attention from Home Affairs and probably from other departments as well. So this is my real dream at the end of all this, is to get everyone who has a routine case to actually mostly take care of themselves.
Naturally.
Think about SARS. Think about how the tax system works. 90% of people go through auto assessments online. They take care of themselves. But I can tell you, the remaining 10%, those are the complex cases.
All hands on deck.
And we want to use the same model. And then we have great examples like India, a country also of around 1.4 billion people, who actually within 2 years documented the entire population. And they did it. Crazy. They had these little suitcases with cameras and fingerprint scanners, and they went into communities. And that's where I want Home Affairs to end up. So we can go to that community in the Eastern Cape that you mentioned, so that we can go there and say, all right, Home Affairs is now here, and we want to find all the children here that are undocumented. You sit with the community, and I would love to get to in other words, once we get to this point, we've succeeded in many other things because now we've got capacity. So I would love to get to this point and start exploring things that have worked in other parts of Africa, for example. You bring a community together and you say, this child is undocumented. Who's this boy's mother?
There we go.
This is, okay, maybe the mother's away. Where's their sister? Okay, and you start putting together a genealogy and a family tree. And you bring that dignity of a state that actually recognizes you. That says your family matters.
Your identity
you're no longer invisible. We are going to bring that to you. So that is all part of Home Affairs at Home, even for the most disadvantaged, most rural communities who at the moment are just completely left behind because we are consumed by routine transactions.
And you know what you're saying is so cool to me, because if you are able to get that level of integration, then it means even at birth, hospitals are able to sort it out, because currently there's also another problem where people get born in hospitals and they walk out without verification because even though you are born in South Africa, maybe your mother or your father, it's mostly the problem when your mother is a foreign international, mostly Lesotho, for example, in the Free State. My experience is that your mother is from Lesotho, but the father is here. And then somehow in the system there isn't a coordination of your identification. And then if your dad passes and your mother is still in Lesotho, you're undocumented. So what you're doing is super cool.
And I think it's also quite important because, and you know, I'm just getting chills here because, you know, we assisted in the WCED admissions process this year, and what we often find is that a lot of the kids don't have birth certificates. And you have to upload that document so that the WCED can actually identify the person or the learner in this case, and actually see, you know, are they registered in the country. So if you are already dealing with that on such a low scale level in communities that don't have access to these things, you probably are going to make it so much easier for Sawiwe in her department, you know, who has to deal with these admissions on a provincial and national level in this case, where learners actually have an identity.
To school,
you know? And they're not just a number on the system. They have a name, they have a surname, they've got a father, they've got a mother, and you can recognize that dignity within that learner.
It's all about dignity, and that's the opportunity we've got. But again, the key is to go to the source of the problem. That's where I think, as I say, if we can get to that stage where we've got the capacity to do this in a focused way, the knock-on effects is what's experienced by the education sector, for example, because the source wasn't addressed. And to your point, now to be fair, there has been progress towards having birth registration functionality in more hospitals, but again, we're looking at ways that technology can make it more efficient, make it easier, and get the confirmation that we need. It is a major problem. I do think even if we get all of the tech right, this is one of those areas where we're going to have to go into communities to ultimately find all those South Africans who are undocumented. And I just want to say this, Don, it's a critical point for this discussion. When people say we must get rid of everyone who's undocumented, you will get rid of millions of South Africans
who are legitimately South African.
Critical. So the state needs to first do its job to ensure that everyone who is entitled as a South African to identity is documented. And then we will know what the population is of people who legitimately are undocumented and shouldn't be in the country. But this is a point that often gets lost in the debate.
100%.
And we cannot be a country that wants to chase away millions of South African children, because that's where you'd end up with this kind of blanket
approach. Leon, that is such an important point, because we have, you know, some really useless parties running around saying undocumented. And I think this is such an important point, because we actually don't know that there's a lot of South Africans that are undocumented. And I think people are falling into these traps where, you know, undocumented, you're not South African. But we're hearing now that actually in some instances that is not the case. Those are South Africans.
It's absolutely right, Yolo. And that's why we have a responsibility to be honest about the scale of the problem we have. And this isn't a problem that started yesterday or a year ago. It's been decades in the making. And it is time that we work in a focused way to resolve it. But I can tell you now, sloganeering is going to get you nowhere. Populism is going to make the problem 10 times worse, because South African citizens will be swept up in anything that is based on this. And ultimately, the solution is exactly what we're talking about. Smart reforms that use technology to make up where we don't have capacity, and then going in a concerted manner with the goal of documenting South African citizens who are entitled to that dignity. It is a disgrace. It is a disgrace that you can be in South Africa with a family who are South African, and somehow the state isn't able to recognize or enable you. It is an infringement on your dignity. And yes, it's a huge problem. But I believe we are on track, and we must do it. This is the thing about reform. It's not cheap. It's not easy. You have to do it systematically. We can't do this at the scale required today because we're consumed by people coming to collect an ID. But once we're able to deal with that problem, we move to the next phase. And eventually, as I say, this would be a marker of enormous success for us.
Leon, for a second term.
If you start seeing, well, hopefully not necessary. We are working with urgency, I can assure you.